Welcome to Practicing with Integrity, highlighting the pioneering spirit of modern dentistry with a comprehensive view of the techniques and technologies at the forefront of dental science.
Welcome, Dr. Cesar Butura, to episode 2 of Practicing with Integrity. I've titled our episode Partnering with Integrity.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you for having me, Dr. Galindo.
I'm really happy for you to be here. We've worked together for a good number of years.
A few.
And have shared a lot of experiences that hopefully we'll be able to share with our listeners. So we began working in June of 2008. When the first multi-specialty dental implant center opened in Arizona. And we had just met a few months before that opening. And then I've got to say, I had the pleasure of working with you for 16 years. And we'll get to more of this later. Let's talk about your training.
Oh.
So, New Yorker.
New Yorker.
City
Don't
College.
hold it against me. Don't say it against me.
City College. Then you earned your dental degree at Columbia.
Yeah, Columbia University. Mm-hmm.
And why did you choose oral surgery?
Great question. I still think of that today. Actually, it came back to my probably between junior and senior year of high school. I spent some time with a friend of mine's mom, who happened to be the head of the NICU at Long Island Jewish Hospital. So what does the NICU have to do with oral surgery? Well, another gentleman, the same age, was also in the same little office, whose dad happened to be an oral surgeon there. And I said, hey, my dad's in the OR. Can you just go check it out? So this is before OSHA prohibited family members from observing in the operating room. But anyway, so I went in and I watched Le Fort 1 osteotomy. I was like, hey, that looks kind of cool. I might want to do that someday. Anyway, so went off to college, got a degree in chemistry, forgot about dentistry. And somehow it came back, and I went to Columbia afterwards.
And then you chose your residency at UIC, University
it chose
of
me,
Illinois
yeah,
in
it
Chicago.
chose me.
It chose you. And I know we spoke about this many, many times, but there were a lot of unique aspects of that residency that kind of defined your career. Let's talk about a few of these.
So as any type of surgical residency, there are really two types. There's something called a resident-run residency or an attending-run residency. So what's the difference? The resident-run residency is basically where you learn from a fellow resident. So it's the adage, see one, do one, teach one. A attending-run residency is basically you have someone over your shoulder the whole time. I'm not saying the resident-run residency is a free-for-all, but it's about as close as you can get. So you're given a lot of responsibility from day one. First time on trauma call for myself, I was really surprised when a young woman came with a very serious injury to the face. I called the second in sort of command for that evening, and I said, hey, just take care of it. So that went down the line. I mean, that was my training. It was learned by the bootstraps, and that pretty much defined my objectivity to surgery. As obviously you have to be able to deal with any problem that comes your way, and you have to be creative in dealing with those problems that come your way. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to treat the patients in the manner they should be treated.
So you completed your residency, and then it's the real world.
Yeah, the real world. So the real world was Chicago for a year, then I went up to North Dakota for 5, and then to Arizona.
So little by little, you made your way west.
To Arizona. Yeah, listen to my wife. She wanted to be in Arizona. We came back here.
And you moved to Phoenix, 2003.
Yeah. Correct.
And you were part of a practice that had 2 locations.
Correct.
You had been at a bigger practice in North Dakota. You covered the whole state.
Yeah, we pretty much covered the whole state, 7 locations. There's nothing like a daily drive to the office of 100 miles, one way.
Yeah, well, that puts things in perspective for a lot of our listeners. How did your practices start evolving into implant dentistry?
So that's actually a really good question. And it has to be my first exposure to implants was in 1993, where I took the first Brandemark course. And if you recall from those days, only surgeons could take those courses. Those are 2-day courses, very heavily didactic.
Surgeons and prosthodontists.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
So they were heavily didactic, and I found them extremely boring, because here I am, a surgeon. I want to cut. I want to be in the OR. I want to fix people. Implants seem like, oh my God, what am I doing this for? And once I got into private practice, I realized the importance of implants. And again, this is 1996. So Brandemark MK4s, you put them in, you wait for 6 months, and you uncover them, and you give somebody a tooth, right? As things progressed, I got to Bismarck, and my partners were very vision forward. They knew the future of dentistry would be implant driven to a great extent. And they were very on the sort of cutting edge. So we had large accounts with different companies, 3i at that time, and a company called, God, I'm trying to remember their name. They were, they're conical implants back in the day. Lifecore. I don't know if you remember those guys.
Yeah,
Lifecore
yeah.
dental implants. So we went to the implant meetings, and I started going to the Chicago implant meeting and start to really learn and delve into the implant part of surgery. And it became something I was really interested in, which led me to the next path of life.
So let's talk about something that influenced our next path of life. And in the first decade of the 2000s, there's this procedure that we start listening about. Procedure that comes out of Portugal with Paulo Malo, where in a very novel fashion, he is taking care of patients on the same day with as little as 4 dental implants, and his procedure called the all-on-4 treatment concept, which is probably one of the most significant advances in implant dentistry that we've ever had. And I think it's recognized as like a groundbreaking type procedure. And you and I, in our private practices independently, you in your surgery practice, me and my prosthodontic practice, start listening about it.
Correct. So the first exposure, I believe, was in 2006 at the Nobel meeting and the World Conference that they had. And frankly, it was hard to conceptualize being able to place implants the same day and have somebody walk out with a set of teeth. You're taught from Brandemark's osseointegration theories and Rangert and all those other luminaries that, hey, you need to wait 4 to 6 months for osseointegration to occur. Obviously, things have changed, and the thought of osseointegration is vastly different from what it used to be, in the 80s. So my first exposure with immediate loading was using the Nobel guide, and that was developed by Nobel as a surgical guide to allow for immediate loading of implants to a pre-made prosthesis. So that was pretty cumbersome, I have to say, honestly, back in 2006 and 2007. It was full of little pitfalls. And when I did see I actually watched Malo's videos on the all-on-4. I was greatly surprised and impressed how you can navigate without a guide and be able to achieve even better results using freehand implant placement and your techniques for picking up the temporary abutments.
So now we're hitting 2007. 2 entrepreneurs that partnered together, one with a background in telecommunications, Steve Boyd, and another one, a general dentist from Colorado, Don Maloney, that pioneered kind of like the same day denture service, start this company, and word comes out that they're looking for a location in Arizona. And you and I start talking to them independently, and we visit the original center in Denver where Dr. Ole Jensen, oral surgeon, and Dr. Mark Adams are performing these procedures. And eventually we're introduced serendipitously at a dinner event.
Correct.
What do you recall of that meeting?
Well, I definitely recall my visit to Denver. It was very memorable indeed. What really impressed me was how quickly and easily Dr. Jensen was performing the surgeries. I was immediately impressed, and also taken back thinking, gosh, if I do this, will I be ever as proficient and as efficient as he was? The other, what I remembered was just a massive scale of the office.
Yeah.
The largeness of the office and basically the very efficient manner in which it ran. We definitely, I came back to Phoenix, was very excited, and we got connected for dinner. And our first dinner was at Cafe Pino.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I remember going there, we're just chatting. And I think I remember, if I remember correctly, there was maybe some doubts, and this is actually going to take off the ground. And if this is actually going to be a procedure that will be there a year from now, 2 years from now, never mind 20 years from now.
Yeah, I remember having that conversation. For me personally, I'm a second generation dentist and grew up with my father having an implant center that he operated by himself. So being able to partner with an oral surgeon for me was very exciting. And as we moved on with the conversations, and this match was created and we opened our center, we caught a little bit of slack.
You're being very kind with the word slack. I think you're being kind. We did. So any industry that's disruptive to the status quo is going to catch slack. So disruptive in which ways? Number one was direct-to-consumer advertising. That was very disruptive in 2007. The second was, oh my God, they're only placing 4 implants to hold a whole set of teeth, 12 to 14, whatever the occlusion would be. How can this happen? Second of all, how can this be loaded immediately? And how can you guys literally pull this off? And I think a lot of it had to do with fear of the unknown, really. And sometimes when you're beaten to the punch, I hate to say it, you might have a little bit of envy that, hey, how come I didn't think of that? And honestly, I think it was a lot of fear of the unknown, really. It was just like, hey, these guys are coming with this. This is going to work. Are they going to be able to pull this off? Are the patients going to benefit from it? And obviously, the same folks that were distractors back in the day or detractors back in the day are full supporters of that today.
Correct.
And they're also practicing the same thing today.
Yeah.
So it's funny how history kind of comes back on you.
Yeah, that's right. Having been in my practice limited to prosthodontics prior to jumping into this venture, I was very focused on the restorative side of what I did and making sure that the teeth that I designed looked good, functioned good, and all this. And when we started working together and we start looking at 15, 20, 30 CBCT images a day, my first thing was that I had to take a step back and kind of revisit all the anatomy that we learned in dental school that you dealt with on a daily basis in your practice, and principles of physiology and whatnot. What did you have to do?
Well, I had to learn how to process things. And
Sorry.
No, it's okay. That's how you learn. That's how you grow, right? So the idea is to be able to manage the anatomy, place the implants in the position that's ideal for you to give the patient the best outcome. And replacing one tooth is, I don't want to say easy, but it's fairly simple. Replacing a whole set on someone that has, let's say, let's say class 3 occlusion or class 2 deep bite occlusion or some other issues, it's difficult. And to be able to achieve that surgically on a day after day, case after case basis, I definitely had to learn how you thought, what you were looking for. And ultimately, I think that's what led to the success. Is our success was that fact that we're able to climb in each other's shoes and be able to kind of see things from the other side to see what I need to give you and vice versa. And you always remember my favorite phrase, the enemy of good is better, right? So you learn to say, hey, this is the best what we can do for this person, but that best is going to be far, far better than when they walk through the door with.
True. And I remember hearing this quite often in our conversations. Going back to the fear of the unknown, I think that some of that environment that was being developed around us motivated me to want to learn more, explore more, and be really good at what we were doing. And as year one and year two went by, and we developed a comfort of working together and working for the benefit of our patients, then we started to see more complicated cases.
Correct.
And our desire to help people led us to explore other approaches, placing implants in the vomer area, in the pterygoid plate, in the zygomatic arch. You really went full in.
Well, see one, do one, teach one. No, but so I'm going to come back 1 second to what you said, is to sort of the challenges on the outside world made us to be better. So I always practice as if my surgery is going to be reviewed by independent peers, right? I was always, I'm going to do this, place these implants. How is someone going to look at them?
So I'm going to say something right now.
Yeah.
Practicing with integrity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how am I going to be viewed for doing this surgery 5 years from now? And I'm a stickler about certain things like are these implants symmetrical?
Correct.
Right?
Mirror images left and right.
Exactly. But but those things are the details, and the details led to over 6,000 cases with a success rate that today is unrivaled anywhere else.
Correct.
I still sometimes present to my colleagues, and they're still looking at those slides a little cross-eyed and say, are you sure those are right? Yes, they are. And as far as pushing the envelope, I do remember our first patient that we did zygoma on. The guy had 8 failed surgeries.
Correct.
8. And the ability to be able to help him, and the fact that he's still in those same implants today, 16 years later, is truly amazing. And we did that surgery on a Saturday. Remember? It was a Saturday. We closed the center, so you just focus on this one person, because I thought the case was so difficult, which it is, and it was. And I remember going to the first zygoma course with Bedrosian, and I showed him that case, and he said, that might not want to be your first case. And sure,
it's
it was
already scheduled.
It's already, exactly. That's why I'm here, because it's already scheduled.
Well, I think that, again, just to touch on something that you mentioned a moment ago, when you put the patient first, when you are looking after the patient, and when we were so in tune with that being our ultimate goal, it allowed us to be able to practice together,
Correct.
Practice successfully, and deliver some incredible results. Let's move forward to kind of the environment that we're living in right now. It's a lot of digital.
Correct.
Now, and in my role as Chief Clinical Officer for Integrity Dental Services, I often speak with oral surgeons. Tell me, how has your relationship with dental labs in the last few years evolved?
Well, the relationship started in my own office with completing cases where the lab techs would come in and help with the conversion. So all of a sudden, I learned how to be 1/10 of a prosthodontist. Then I had to learn to be 1/10 of a lab tech. Right? You have to, because if you don't know the steps involved, you can't even begin to complete your task successfully. So that was phase one. And then we got that mastered, and all of a sudden, wait a minute, as digital that comes in. So you have to, next level
From
of
analog to digital.
The next level of evolution. And at first, it was it still is, it's in some ways, it's a very, not necessarily nebulous, but it's a very crowded space. With a lot of systems in place, a lot of scanners, a lot of software, that sometimes you don't know which one to choose. You don't know which one is the best. Lab A employs software B, Lab B employs software C, so who's doing what and why. So now I'm in the process of learning that. And I have to say that, yes, oral surgeons that you talk to are wanting to know how to use the software, but I'm not sure they're doing it for the right reasons. So why am I saying that?
Mhm.
Because I think they're trying to eliminate steps in the process. And the steps they're trying to eliminate are steps that perhaps a prosthetist would be involved with, which maybe I'm stepping off the sheet here. But when those steps are eliminated, things usually don't go very well. Does that make sense?
That makes total sense.
Yeah,
I mean, it seems that now there's a big push towards rushing the case
correct.
and getting everything completed as fast as a machine can make it. But this procedure involves biology,
Yes,
involves a human being's body healing.
correct.
Let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, the surgery for, let's say, all on X, doesn't matter if it's 4 or 6,
Mhm.
zygoma or voma or pterygoids, involves placing an implant in the bone. That's an injury. The body has to recover from the injury. The entire inflammatory pathway is triggered. The healing process is triggered, as we all know. Within 2 to 4 weeks, the resorption of bone around the implant happens, and then the position, and finally, a stable environment for the implant to be locked into. All right. If I could quote the literature, I think the micromotion tolerance is between 100 to 150 micrometers
Mhm.
on those
Correct.
implants. So if someone rushes biology, those very simple principles are not really followed, and usually implants don't tend to integrate very well under those principles. They might have some fibrous integration, partial integration, but at the same token, they're not going to have the lifespan that you're looking for. At least that's my personal opinion. Again, no science behind it, but I believe if you don't pay homage or respect biological processes, ultimately going to get in trouble.
I agree with you. I agree with you completely. With all these digital technologies that are out there, probably the most revolutionary one was one that we adopted about 16 years ago. Of course, you have it in your practice, the CBCT.
Correct.
You know, before you would try to do your treatment planning off a Pano, but the CBCT completely changed everything.
Correct.
And then it became a must in offices. And that was a concern back then, because if one surgeon would have a CBCT, it kind of made it mandatory for every surgeon to have a CBCT. What is your view on how that changed your way of practice?
Well, having grown up in the hospital with CTs, everything was CT. You never fractured CT. You always had a CT behind you, but that was a hospital setting. Once you got into the office, our first CT was 2007 in the office. Actually 8. It really made you very. It really opened your eyes, right? It made you understand what you're able to do or not able to do.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, once you see anatomy in 3D, it totally changes your view of implant placement. And what it also does, it opens your eyes to other places where you can place implants, where planners cannot. I mean, no static film can do that. But anything that's like a 3-dimensional CT they can manipulate will definitely improve your ability to place implants in spots where before you didn't think you could.
Yeah, it's impossible not to
Correct.
use that
I
technology.
can't imagine
nowadays.
not having one.
And there's a great number of workflows now that are evolving where the CBCT is an incredible part of the restorative procedure.
Correct.
And that's coming down in the next few months, but that's really exciting.
Yeah.
You're an avid reader. I learned that when during the years that we worked together. One of the books that we shared reading was Jim Collins' Good to Great. His first sentence in his book, it was, good is the enemy of great.
Yeah.
You have an incredibly successful oral surgery practice.
Well, thank you.
Butura oral and dental implant surgery. How do you transmit your vision to your team so that they can carry that vision with you?
It's one simple sentence. You walk it. You walk in, you do what you need to do, but you are the example. You do what you say you're going to do. You act like you say you should act, and you basically are to roll from minute one to the end of the day. It's, to walk the walk and talk the talk. You have to do that. It's leadership by example. It goes to emotional intelligence. All those, we both read Emotional Intelligence,
Correct.
another great book.
Yeah.
So it definitely, if you're not leading with integrity, if you're not acting with integrity, no one else is going to follow that. They're all just going to do their own thing.
Yeah. So that creates an incredible culture of accountability
Correct.
in the office.
Correct.
And if you're talking the talk, people will follow that.
Correct.
So
ironically, I'm one of the few offices that I don't even have an office manager. It's just kind of crazy, right?
yeah.
Because everybody knows what they're supposed to do. Everybody is responsible for what they're supposed to do. And if they can't do on their own, they have communication between them. And finally, they come to me. But that rarely ever happens.
That's incredible. That's amazing. And that's congratulations to your success on implementing that culture aspect in your practice. Of course, oral surgery is a referral-based practice, mostly. Communication is an incredible tool.
It is
of handling those referrals. What are your key aspects of communication with your referral offices?
Texting.
It's incredible, huh?
Well, if you call my office after hours, guess what? You get my cell phone number.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, if you have a problem, call this number. And that's really my cell phone.
Mm-hmm.
And every referral that I work with has that number. And I can pull on my cell phone. I'll show you all the different messages from different referrals. Hey, I saw patient Y. What do you think? Help me out with this. So that's really, it's being available and being really transparent. And just, I used to go pick up the phone and write a letter, but honestly, with technology these days, is texting so easy.
Yeah.
So it's availability. It's hey, I'm here.
It's being available.
Yeah,
correct. Going back to the book from Jim Collins, he highlights 3 principal aspects: disciplined people, which you describe that you have in your office; disciplined thought that you transmit to your team; and disciplined action.
Correct. Level 5.
Level 5. Okay. How did you adopt these into your practice? Now, you don't learn this when you're doing your residency.
No,
nobody teaches you how to run a practice.
Okay, you're absolutely 100% correct. So looking back at my past, I was lucky that in North Dakota I had some great mentors. And one of them, Jerry Corbush, he was I managed a senior partner of the practice. And he had an MBA in practice management, and he happened to have a dissertation in practice management, oral surgery practice. And he's the one I would credit to how to run a practice efficiently, how to manage your staff efficiently, and more importantly, how you treat your staff. And then my other partner, Scott Preisler, was my mentor in surgery. He's the guy I wanted to be like. The guy that was greased lightning with amazing hands and great people skills.
So you leave Chicago, you land in this practice,
this is the best thing ever happened.
Incredible mentors.
The best thing ever happened. Besides, obviously, coming down and having our time together.
Yeah, that was incredible. Those were memorable years of practicing together. Where do you see that oral surgery is heading to in the broad scope of dental practicing?
So a couple of things, demographics are going to have a part with the future oral surgery. Demographics of a shrinking population pool, meaning on our end, as far as oral surgeons, the amount of folks that are retiring without people to replace them. So a man/woman power shortage has been with us, and it's going to, I think, continue to get worse. I think a lot of oral surgeons have been attracted to sort of non-traditional practice roles, meaning DSOs, meaning traveling from office to office to do surgery rather than having their own office. And to me, that's a little discouraging, to be honest with you, because I think as a goal is you always want to have your own business. But I know things change. I know the pressures of economic pressures on the young surgeons are very different than what I faced. It's not common for a surgeon now to graduate with $500,000 worth of debt. And obviously no one's going to lend them money to open a practice, or never mind buying one. So they have to do what they can to be able to basically pay their debt and be able to practice and live. So I think that's a huge change in the business model of oral surgery. But as far as the actual nuts and bolts, I think hospital surgeries are decreasing, and most surgeons are practicing in your office. Obviously, there's anesthesia units, mobile anesthesia units that come to the office to allow surgeons to do a lot more in their offices. And I think surgeons are trending more, again, towards implant-based procedures versus 25, 30 years ago, where most of them didn't even want to think about it.
Like avoiding Leforts and...
So a lot of guys don't practice that kind of oral surgery anymore. No TMJ, no Lefort surgery.
Yeah.
Trauma is still there, pathology is there, but I'm not sure how much orthodontic makes up.
It's interesting to see that approach. And
Yeah.
The future is bright, I believe.
It is bright. It is bright.
Provided that you're looking after patients and, taking care of what their needs are.
Correct. So, but that has to be, again, a forefront of someone's practice mentality and practice judgment.
Excellent. Well, Cesar, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
For being our guest here in our second episode.
Oh, I'm honored.
Yeah. Well, you had to be. You had to be one of the first guests.
Well, thank you.
So in our second episode of Practicing with Integrity with Dr. Cesar Butura, oral and maxillofacial surgeon in Phoenix, Arizona, and the owner of Butura Oral and Dental Implant Surgery Practice in Phoenix, we learned about the practice of oral surgery and how this practicing oral surgery has evolved in relationships with other specialists, with general dentists, and of course with labs, always in the interest of offering patients the best solution possible. I want to thank you sincerely for being my guest, taking time out of your busy practice schedule, commuting from one office to the other, and sharing with our listeners your views in implant dentistry and the overall practice of oral surgery.
Well, again, thank you for having me. It's been an amazing 16 years that we got to work together, and we definitely broke a lot of boundaries.
Indeed, we did. Indeed, we did.
I don't know how much time we have left, but I always go back to this one story from our AO meeting in 2011 in Washington.
Correct.
When we presented a poster on immediate loading zygomatic implants against the lower L4.
I remember that. Yeah.
And people are looking at us like, what are you doing?
Exactly.
And we're next to some person presenting on guided tissue regeneration. Not to knock down by any means, not to knock down, but anyway, we're soaring with the eagles, soaring with the supersonic jets.
I remember having a beautiful dinner while being in Washington, D.C. with Baldwin Marshak.
And your dad.
Yeah, my dad was there. Well, listeners can go to phoenixbusinessradiox.com to listen to the show live. They can also search for my podcast, Practicing with Integrity, on the Business Radio X network and major platforms like Spotify, Apple, iHeart, Google, and Spreaker. Feel free to share with family, friends, and colleagues, and look forward to the next episode.
All right.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Practicing with Integrity. Stay tuned as we navigate the fascinating landscape of oral health, where integrity meets innovation.